Salvage Station Theta 7 wasn't designed for miracles. It was designed for efficiency-reinforced plating, automated systems, and enough gravitational variance to accommodate 17 different species. Maintenance technician third-class Maya Reeves understood this better than most. She'd spent 3 years crawling through its corridors, fixing what broke, which on a station this old meant fixing nearly everything. She stood 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighed 130 pounds. By human standards, she was average. By station standards, she was laughably small. "Careful with that conduit, little one," Salvage Chief Kessex rumbled as she squeezed past him in the maintenance tunnel. The Grandmully stood nearly 7 feet tall, his forearms capable of bending titanium support beams. "Wouldn't want you getting hurt." Maya forced a smile. Kessex meant well. They all did. But after 3 years of being treated like fragile cargo, the concern wore thin. She'd proven herself dozens of times over fastest diagnostic times, highest repair completion rate, perfect safety record. None of it mattered. They saw her frame and assumed weakness. The station's morning briefing confirmed her suspicions. Station Administrator Velk, a serpentine Thurian with scales that shimmered like oil, addressed the assembled crew with barely concealed disdain. "Human workers will remain on light-duty assignments," Velk announced, his translator rendering his hisses into flat, bureaucratic standard. "Recent efficiency reports show your species requires excessive rest periods and medical attention. We cannot afford such ... inefficiency." Maya's jaw tightened. Those reports were fabricated. She'd seen the real numbers. Human workers consistently outperformed projected metrics. But arguing would accomplish nothing. Velk had decided humans were a liability, and facts wouldn't change his mind. Beside her, Jackson Torres, another human maintenance tech, muttered under his breath, "3 months of this garbage. How long before they just ship us all planet-side?" "As long as we let them," Maya whispered back. The briefing ended. As the crew dispersed, Maya caught Kessex watching her with something approaching pity. She turned away quickly, heading toward her assigned section. The station needed her skills, whether its administrators acknowledged them or not. In the cargo bay, the morning shift loaded supplies while a damaged transport limped into Dock 7. Its approach looked wrong trajectory, too steep. Thrusters firing erratically. Maya paused, instinct screaming warning. Then the transport clipped a docking ring. Metal screamed. Alarm shrieked. The station's spin regulator, already operating at marginal capacity, shattered under the impact. Artificial gravity lurched. Maya grabbed a support beam as the station's rotation destabilized. Around her, crew members scrambled for emergency positions. Through the chaos, one thought crystallized with terrible clarity. Someone was about to die, and everyone would discover exactly what humans were capable of when necessity demanded it. The station shuddered. Red emergency lights painted everything in blood. Maya ran toward the cargo bay, where the real crisis was just beginning. The cargo bay had become a death trap. Emergency protocols had sealed bulkheads, isolating sections to prevent cascading failures. The damaged transport's collision had triggered a cascade of malfunctions offline cranes, malfunctioning gravity compensators, and, worst of all, a fusion core breach in progress. Vara pilot Drex lay unconscious inside his military-grade exosuit, pinned in the one section experiencing 2.3 times standard gravity. His exosuit's power systems had failed during emergency repairs. Without coolant regulation, his fusion core was climbing toward criticality. Maya reached the cargo bay entrance as Kessex and 5 other heavy worlders struggled with the suit. 2 Halveth deckhands, built like bears with claws, heaved against the armor plating. Darren Rigger Prax dug his talons into seams meant for mechanical lifts. Kessex himself had all 4 arms locked onto shoulder joints, pulling with enough force to crack stone. The exosuit moved 4 inches, then stopped. "Cores in cascade," someone shouted from the monitoring station. 6 minutes until breach. 6 minutes. Maya's mind processed the variables automatically. 800 pounds of exosuit plus 400-pound Varric inside. 2.3 gravity multiplier. 1,840 pounds effective weight. 60 meters to the airlock. Standard procedure. Jettison the suit before radiation contaminated the entire bay. "We're not gonna make it," Prax wheezed, purple blood seeping from his claws. "We need the crane system." "Crane's offline." Kasich snapped. "Everything's offline except life support and the gravity we can't shut down." Maya studied the situation with the cold calculation of someone who'd spent 3 years being underestimated. The math was brutal but simple. They couldn't move Drex. He would die. The radiation would spread. Others would die, unless someone did something impossible. "I can move him," Maya said. Every head, every sensory organ approximating a head turn toward her. The monitoring station's countdown continued impassively. 5 minutes 40 seconds. Kasich stared. "You ... what?" "I can move him." Maya walked forward, not running, conserving energy the way zero-gravity training had taught her. She'd spent years rock climbing recreationally, building functional strength. She understood leverage, body mechanics, efficient force distribution. She also understood something else. Something every human carried in their genetic memory from a planet that had spent millions of years trying to kill them. "You're going to hurt yourself," one of the Halvaths said gently. Maternal instincts overriding species boundaries. Maya crouched beside Drex's fallen form. Her hands found purchase points designed for mechanical lifts, reinforced sections, where the suit's weight distribution concentrated. She adjusted her stance, feet planted wide, and took one deep breath. Her instructors at basic training had explained hysterical strength in clinical terms. Neurological governors. Safety limiters. Adrenaline response. Emergency override protocols built into human biology by evolutionary pressures most species never faced. They'd explained it. They'd never made her use it. 4 minutes 40 seconds. Maya stood up. The exosuit came with her. 1,840 pounds of effective weight rose off the deck, plating as if gravity had taken a coffee break. Her muscles screamed immediate protest. Her bones creaked under impossible compression. Every safety system her body possessed shrieked warnings her brain systematically ignored. She'd done the math. Drex would die for certain. She would probably survive. Easy choice. "Opening airlock now," Maya said calmly, as if she weren't currently violating every known principle of biomechanics. She started walking. Behind her, 6 crew members stood frozen in complete disbelief. Kasich's secondary brain, the combat reflex processor, insisted he was hallucinating. His primary brain knew better, but desperately wanted to join the hallucination. Maya's pace never wavered. 1 foot forward, then another. The deck plating groaned under combined weight, but held. Her breathing went ragged. She could hear it echoing in her own ears, but her legs kept moving. Halfway to the airlock, her right knee buckled slightly. Pain lanced through the joint, sharp and immediate. She adjusted her grip, redistributing weight, and continued. Behind her, someone finally moved. "Somebody help her!" One of the Halvaths shouted. "Help her do what?" Kasich shot back, his voice climbing an octave. "She's already doing the impossible." 3 minutes stub Maya reached the airlock threshold. The chamber beyond was barely large enough for the exosuit designed for emergency jettison of contaminated equipment, not careful placement. She pivoted carefully, muscles trembling now, and walked Drex inside. Then came the hardest part. She bent, supporting the full weight in a squat position that every athletic trainer in human history would have classified as catastrophically dangerous, and lowered the suit to the chamber floor with the care of someone handling something precious, because it was. Drex was someone's colleague, someone's friend, maybe someone's family. The weight didn't matter. The person did. Maya stepped back, slapped the emergency jettison panel. The inner door sealed. Warning lights bathed the cargo bay amber as explosive bolts fired, launching Drex's suit into the void at high velocity. Standard procedure. Get it away fast. Let vacuum's perfect insulation contain the core until recovery. 2 minutes 30 seconds. Crisis averted. Maya stood there, hands on her knees, breathing hard. Her legs felt like liquid. Her spine felt compressed. Everything hurt. She straightened slowly, walked back across the cargo bay, and reached for a diagnostic tablet hanging on the tool locker. "Anyway," she said, voice slightly rough, "I should probably check the airlock seals. That ejection protocol isn't exactly gentle on door mechanisms." The silence was absolute. Maya glanced up, noticed everyone staring. "What? What?" Kessex repeated, his voice strangled. "What?" "Emergency procedure. The core was going critical. We had 3 minutes. You just carried 1,840 pounds like it was cargo netting." "Oh," Maya considered this. "Yeah, I guess I did." She went back to examining the diagnostic tablet, apparently considering the matter closed. Prax made a sound somewhere between a wheeze and a prayer. Her spine should have compressed into paste. Her femurs should have shattered. One of the Holveth added. Her cardiovascular system should have ruptured from blood pressure spike alone. Kessex said, running through his xenobiology training. "That's not humans can't. There's no evolutionary basis for—" "Hey, Kessex," Maya called from the airlock controls. "Seal's fine, but I'm showing a hydraulic pressure drop in the outer door mechanism. Might want someone to check that." "Yes, sure. The hydraulic pressure. That's definitely the concerning mechanical issue happening right now." Maya nodded, satisfied, and made a note on her tablet. She was limping slightly now, favoring her right leg, as if the impossible feat of strength had only just started registering with her body. "Reeves," Kessex said carefully, "are you injured?" She looked down at herself, genuinely surprised by the question. "Probably pulled something. I'll ice it later." Pulled something. She just deadlifted the equivalent of a small spacecraft, and her medical assessment was probably pulled something. The monitoring station beeped. Core breach averted. Radiation levels returning to normal. In the silence that followed, 6 crew members continued staring at the small human, cataloging maintenance issues as if the last 5 minutes hadn't fundamentally violated their understanding of physical reality. Finally, Prax spoke, voice hushed with something approaching religious awe. "What else can your species do?" Maya looked up from her tablet, genuinely thoughtful. "I mean, I'm not even that strong. You should see the humans who actually train for it." Kessex felt his primary brain give up entirely. Somewhere beyond the station, Drex's exosuit tumbled through space, its fusion core slowly stabilizing in absolute cold. Inside the cargo bay, the impossible had just happened. The being responsible was filling out maintenance paperwork. Administrator Velk called an emergency council meeting within 3 hours. Maya stood in the station's briefing amphitheater, surrounded by senior staff representing 17 different species. The holographic replay of her cargo bay feat played on loop above them. Velk's scales rippled with barely contained fury. "Explain this spectacle." "Emergency response," Maya said simply. "Core breach imminent. Standard jettison protocol required moving the suit to the airlock. I moved it. You violated every safety regulation regarding load capacity. I saved a crew member's life. You could have died. Could have. Didn't." Maya kept her voice level, professional. 3 years of condescension had taught her that losing her temper accomplished nothing. Drex is alive. Station is safe. Radiation contained. Mission parameters met. Kasich shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He'd filed the incident report himself, keeping the language clinical and factual. He deliberately avoided terms like impossible or defied physics. The footage spoke for itself. Velk's eyes narrowed to slits. This changes nothing. Humans remain on light duty. In fact, I'm implementing additional restrictions. Clearly, your species lacks proper judgment regarding personal safety. You will undergo a mandatory psychological evaluation before returning to duty. On what grounds? Maya kept her tone neutral, but something cold flickered behind her eyes. On the grounds that I administrate this station, and I determine fitness protocols. Velk's translator rendered his satisfaction perfectly. Your reckless behavior endangers station operations. 3-day suspension. Pending evaluation results, possibly permanent reassignment. Maya stood very still. Around the amphitheater, she felt the attention of 17 species focused on this moment. Some sympathetic, some uncomfortable, most simply watching to see what the small human would do when the system crushed her for saving a life. She thought about Jackson and the other 42 human workers scattered across Theta 7. She thought about fabricated efficiency reports and 3 years of being treated like fragile cargo despite proving herself hundreds of times over. She thought about Drex, alive in Medical Bay, because she'd done what was necessary regardless of risk. Then she thought about Earth, about a planet that had spent 4 billion years trying to kill her ancestors, about prey animals who'd become persistence hunters, about evolutionary pressure so brutal it created a species capable of voluntarily breaking its own safety systems when survival demanded it. Velk wanted to make an example of her. Fine. She'd be an example. Request permission to address the council. Maya said formally. Velk's scales rippled with amusement. Denied. You're dismissed. With respect, Administrator. Station Charter Section 7 grants any crew member the right to formal address following disciplinary action. I'm invoking that right? The amphitheater went silent. Velk's amusement vanished. Station Charter predated his appointment by 3 decades. Written when Theta 7 still operated under United Colonial Authority guidelines. Those guidelines were very specific about crew rights. 2 minutes, Velk hissed. Make it quick. Maya stepped forward, addressing not Velk, but the assembled department heads. 3 months ago, Administrator Velk implemented efficiency protocols targeting human workers. Those protocols cited performance deficiencies. I reviewed the actual data. Human workers exceed baseline productivity by 18%. Our medical incident rate is 12% below station average. Our equipment failure rate is the lowest among all maintenance divisions. She pulled up her personal datapad, projecting statistics onto the main display. The efficiency reports Velk submitted to justify our restrictions? Fabricated. I've traced the data manipulation. It's clumsy work. Almost insulting. Velk rose from his seat. You dare accuse? I'm stating facts. Maya cut him off, her voice sharp as broken glass. Facts supported by system logs you apparently thought nobody would check. You systematically marginalized human workers for 3 months, falsified documentation, and violated Section 4 of the Colonial Employment Protection Act. Today I saved a crew member's life, using abilities you claim make me a liability. So I have a question, Administrator. Who exactly is endangering station operations? The amphitheater erupted. Species Maya couldn't even name began shouting in languages her translator struggled to parse. Kasich stood, his forearms raised for order. Medical Chief Stahl's mandibles clicked in rapid-fire agitation. Through the chaos, Maya held Velk's gaze. She saw hatred there. Also fear. He'd underestimated her. Underestimated all of them. That was his mistake. Velk's voice cut through the noise. Cold and precise. You're finished on this station, human. I'll see you blacklisted across the entire network. Maya smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Try. But first, you might want to check your personal terminal. I sent copies of the real efficiency reports to every department head 10 minutes ago. Also to Colonial Authority Oversight. Also to the Interspecies Labor Board. And just to be thorough, I CC'd the story to 3 major news networks. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Valk? You suspended me for 3 days. That means I've got plenty of time to file formal complaints. I've documented 73 violations of station charter and colonial employment law. Should be an interesting investigation. Maya walked out. Behind her, the amphitheater dissolved into chaos. She'd just declared war on a corrupt administrator. She'd exposed systematic discrimination. She'd turned herself into a symbol whether she wanted to be or not. Her hands were shaking. Her knee throbbed. Her entire body ached from pushing past every biological safety limit. But she walked steady. Because that's what humans did. They endured. And when pushed too far, they pushed back. Maya spent her suspension doing what maintenance technicians did best, finding the cracks in broken systems. Station Theta 7 had plenty. She worked from her quarters, cross-referencing employment records, maintenance logs, and resource allocation data. The picture that emerged was uglier than she'd expected. Velk hadn't just targeted humans. He'd been systematically siphoning station resources for 2 years, hiding the theft behind fabricated efficiency reports and budget optimizations. Humans were simply the easiest scapegoat. Small, physically unimpressive by galactic standards. Easy to dismiss. On her second day of suspension, Kessex knocked on her door. The Grammarly salvage chief looked uncomfortable, his forearms tucked close to his torso. A defensive posture among his species. May I enter? Maya gestured him inside. Her quarters were small, standard crew allocation, currently buried under stacks of datapads and projection displays showing financial discrepancies. Kasich studied the data, his expression darkening. How deep does this go? Deep enough that Velk's probably planning to transfer stations before anyone notices. I'd give him another month before he disappears with about 2 million credits in diverted supplies and maintenance contracts. You have proof? Every transaction for the past 18 months. He got sloppy. Didn't think anyone would check because he controlled access to the financial systems. Maya pulled up a particularly damning set of records. See these repair authorizations? Equipment that was supposedly replaced but actually just moved to shell companies Velk owns. The replacement parts never existed. He built the station, pocketed the money, and nobody questioned it because he blamed increased costs on human inefficiency. Kasich sat heavily on Maya's reinforced guest chair, one of the few pieces of furniture designed for heavy worlders. You use your people as cover for theft. Got it in one. I should have seen this. I'm the salvage chief. These requisitions went through my department. He compartmentalized the data. Made sure nobody could see the whole picture. Maya's voice softened. You weren't complicit, Kasich. You were manipulated. There's a difference. The Grammarly looked at her with something approaching wonder. 3 days ago, you lifted 1,840 pounds. Today, you're conducting forensic accounting investigation. What can't your species do? Apparently, we can't get basic respect without first performing miracles. The bitterness leaked through despite her best efforts. Kasich's arms unfolded. You have mine. For what little that's worth now. I should have defended your crew from the beginning. Then defend us now. I need department heads willing to stand testimony when colonial authority arrives. Maya met his eyes. Velk's going to fight this. He's got connections. But if enough senior staff corroborate the evidence, you'll have my testimony. All of it, Keswick stood. And Reeves? That cargo bay incident? I've worked salvage for 40 years. Seen species from across the galaxy under every kind of pressure. What you did, he struggled for words. That was the most courageous thing I've ever witnessed. Your evaluation shouldn't be psychological fitness. It should be commendation for valor. After he left, Maya returned to her data analysis. But Keswick's words settled something that had been coiled tight in her chest since the council meeting. She wasn't alone in this fight. Over the next 36 hours, others came. Stahl, the insectoid medical chief, brought physiological scan data from the cargo bay incident. Your bone density increased 15% during the lift. Temporary adaptation response. I've never seen anything like it. Prax arrived with testimony about falsified equipment logs. Made me sign off on repairs that never happened. Threatened my position when I questioned discrepancies. Jackson and 3 other human techs brought documentation of harassment, reassignments to dangerous duty stations, and denied medical claims. A pattern of systematic discrimination hidden behind bureaucratic language that by the time Maya's suspension ended, she had 17 crew members ready to testify. Department heads from 12 different species. Workers who'd suffered under Velk's administration and finally saw a chance at accountability. She'd also received a message from someone unexpected. Drex, the Varrock pilot she'd carried to safety, had recovered consciousness and learned what she'd done. His message was characteristically direct. Technician Reeves. My species measures worth through demonstrated capability. You demonstrated capability beyond measure. I stand with you in whatever comes next. My clan's resources are yours. Maya sat in her quarters, surrounded by evidence of corruption, supported by allies she'd earned through competence and courage, and felt something shift. This wasn't just about defending human workers anymore. This was about fixing a broken system that hurt everyone operating in good faith. Velk had tried to make her small, tried to make her quiet, tried to make her invisible. He'd forgotten that humans evolved under pressure. And pressure either crushed you or forged you into something unbreakable. Maya returned to duty the next morning, cleared by the mandatory psychological evaluation with flying colors. The evaluator, a Halva therapist with decades of experience, had included a note in her file. Subject demonstrates exceptional stress response, sound judgment under crisis conditions, and moral courage rare among any species. Recommend immediate advancement to senior technician status. Velk rejected the recommendation within an hour. War it was. Then. Colonial Authority Inspector General Thane arrived on Station Theta 7, exactly 1 week after Maya's cargo bay incident. The Kryn investigator stood 8 feet tall, with sensory antennae that constantly sampled the air for chemical signatures of deception. Her species had built their reputation on incorruptibility. When a Kryn said guilty, the verdict stuck. Administrator Velk greeted her with visible confidence. He'd spent the week systematically deleting files, intimidating potential witnesses, and building an alternative narrative where Maya Reeves was an unstable human seeking attention. Through reckless behavior, what Velk didn't know was that Maya had learned computer systems from the best 3 years of fixing Theta 7's constantly failing. Infrastructure meant she knew every backup protocol, every redundant storage system, every place deleted data actually went. Nothing was ever truly gone. You just had to know where to look. The investigation began in station operations, a circular chamber where holographic displays showed every system status in real time. Velk presented his version of events with practiced ease. fabricated efficiency reports, falsified psychological profiles of human workers. A carefully constructed fiction where he was a dedicated administrator dealing with an inherently problematic workforce. The human Reeves endangered herself and others through reckless behavior. Velk concluded, "My disciplinary action was appropriate and necessary." Inspector Thane's antennae twitched. "I've reviewed your submitted documentation. It's very thorough. I maintain complete records of all administrative decisions." "Yes, you do." Thane pulled up her own display. "I'd like to call the first witness. Technician Maya Reeves." Maya entered operations wearing her standard maintenance jumpsuit, cleaned and pressed for the occasion. She carried a single datapad. No notes, no prepared statement. Just evidence. "Technician Reeves," Thane began formally, "describe the events of Station Day 247. Maya walked them through the cargo bay incident. Factual, clinical, no embellishment. The footage spoke for itself, projected above them in perfect clarity. A small human lifting the impossible and walking it to safety. "Why did you attempt this action?" Thane asked. "Because someone needed help, and I could provide it. You could have died." "Could have. Didn't." Maya met the inspector's multifaceted eyes. Risk assessment was simple. Drex would definitely die if nobody acted. I would probably survive attempting intervention. Easy choice. Velk interjected. This demonstrates exactly the kind of reckless administrator Velk. Thane's voice carried absolute authority. "You will speak when addressed." Continued technician. Maya pulled up her datapad. "Following the incident, Administrator Velk suspended me, citing safety concerns. During that suspension, I reviewed station operations data. I found discrepancies." She projected the financial records. 73 violations of colonial employment law. 218 falsified equipment requisitions. Resource diversion totaling approximately 2.1 million credits over 18 months. The operations chamber went dead silent. Maya continued methodically, presenting evidence with the same calm precision she'd used to catalog maintenance issues. Shell companies. Falsified reports. Diverted supplies. The systematic theft hidden behind discrimination against human workers. These requisitions, she highlighted a series of transactions, were approved by Administrator Velk personally. The equipment supposedly purchased never arrived. The receiving signatures are forgeries. I've traced the actual credit transfers to private accounts owned by. This is fabrication. Velk exploded from his seat. She's falsifying data to deflect from her own failures. Am I? Maya pulled up another display. These are backup logs from the station's primary data core. Deleted files, administrator-level access only. Deletion timestamps coincide with when Colonial Authority announced this investigation. She met Velk's eyes. You tried to erase the evidence. But deleted data gets archived automatically every 48 hours to redundant storage. Station maintenance protocols. I wrote half of them. She projected the recovered files. Velk's original communications. Instructions to falsify reports. Threats to crew members who questioned procedures. A smoking gun presented in his own words. Inspector. Thane's antennae had gone completely still. The Kryn equivalent of focused intensity. Administrator Velk, you will remain silent while I review this evidence. The next 3 hours were methodical destruction. Maya presented documentation. Thane cross-referenced it against station logs, finding confirmation at every step. Other witnesses corroborated specific incidents. Kessex with salvage records. Steele with medical claim denials. Prax with maintenance falsifications. Drex appeared via holographic link from the medical bay. Still recovering but determined to testify. Technician Reeves saved my life at significant personal risk. Administrator Velk's response was to punish her for competence. This is not administration. This is corruption. By hour 4, Velk's confident narrative had collapsed into desperate deflection. By hour 5, even his attempts at deflection had stopped. He sat silent, scales dull with defeat, while the full scope of his crimes became undeniable. Inspector Thane finally spoke, a voice carrying the weight of official judgment. Administrator Velk, you are hereby removed from command of Station Theta 7, pending criminal prosecution for embezzlement, falsification of official records, and violation of Colonial Employment Protection Act, effective immediately. Station security personnel who'd been quietly recording everything at Thane's instruction moved to escort Velk from operations. He went without resistance, his earlier arrogance completely evaporated as the door sealed behind him. Thane turned to Maya. Technician Reeves, your investigation was thorough and professionally executed. Your courage in exposing corruption reflects the highest standards of colonial service. I'm recommending you for formal commendation. Maya nodded once. Thank you, Inspector. I just want to get back to work. About that. Thane pulled up another document. Station Theta 7 requires interim administration while we conduct full organizational review. Chief Salvage Officer Kessex has been appointed temporary administrator. He's requested you as his operations coordinator. Maya blinked. I'm a maintenance technician. You're the person who saved a colleague's life, exposed systematic corruption, and demonstrated leadership under the most demanding circumstances. Thane's antennae curved in what might have been a smile. Kessex's judgment appears sound. Do you accept? Maya looked around operations. At the holographic displays showing station systems she'd kept running for 3 years. At Kessex, whose expression conveyed both hope and respect. At the other crew, members who'd stood beside her when standing. Carried real cost. She thought about Jackson and the other human. Workers who'd endured discrimination. In silence because they believed the system wouldn't listen. She thought about how wrong they'd been. The system worked when people refused to accept corruption. I accept, Maya said. On one condition. Human workers returned to full-duty status, with back pay for every day they were placed on restrictive protocols. Already in the remediation plan, Thane confirmed. Along with comprehensive review of species-based assignment policies. Your case has prompted Colonial Authority to examine similar complaints across the network. We found them. Too many of them. The investigation continued for another week, expanding to encompass Velk's entire network of corruption. But the critical moment had passed. The system had broken. Humans had proven themselves. And Maya had demonstrated that sometimes strength wasn't about how much weight you could carry. Sometimes it was about refusing to let injustice stand. 2 weeks after Velk's removal, Colonial Authority convened a formal tribunal aboard the sector's capital station, Providence Ring. The proceedings were broadcast across 17 systems, not just for justice, but for precedent. What happened to Velk would determine how Colonial Authority handled discrimination cases throughout the network. Maya stood in the testimony chamber, a massive amphitheater designed to accommodate hundreds of species simultaneously. Velk sat in the defendant's enclosure, flanked by legal advocates who'd spent days constructing elaborate arguments about cultural misunderstandings and bureaucratic complexity. They tried to settle, offered Maya transfer to a prestige station, promotion, substantial financial compensation in exchange for reduced charges. She'd refused. This wasn't about personal settlement. This was about making sure nobody else faced what her crew had endured. Presiding Magistrate Gorell, an ancient Talinari whose species measured judicial service in centuries, called the session to order. We convened to address charges against former Administrator Velk of Station Theta 7, criminal embezzlement, falsification of colonial records, and systemic violation of employment protection statutes. Technician Maya Reeves, you may present closing testimony. Maya stepped forward. She'd spent 2 weeks preparing these words, distilling 3 years of discrimination and 1 week of investigation into something that would matter beyond this moment. Your magistrate, honored tribunal members. 3 months ago, I was restricted to light duty because my species was deemed inefficient. The documentation supporting this decision was fabricated, but the decision itself reflected something deeper than one corrupt administrator. She pulled up comparative statistics, displayed across the chamber's holographic array. Humans comprise 3% of colonial workforce. We account for 31% of civilian rescue operations involving personal physical risk. We have the highest workplace survival rate in hazardous environments. We consistently exceed productivity baselines while requiring less specialized equipment than comparable species. Maya's voice remained steady, but conviction burned through every word. Yet we face higher denial rates for safety equipment requisitions, higher rejection rates for advancement opportunities, higher scrutiny for medical claims. This isn't isolated to Station Theta 7. It's systematic. And it's based on assumption rather than evidence. She gestured to the footage playing above her cargo bay lift, now viewed by billions across colonial space. This moment has been analyzed extensively. Xenobiologists debate how human physiology permits such feats. Engineers question the physics. But nobody asks the obvious question. Why would evolution create a species capable of this? Maya turned to face the tribunal directly. Earth is classified as a death world, Category 4, for 4 billion years. It killed everything living on its surface through predation, geological catastrophe, climate extremes, and diseases that evolved alongside potential hosts. Humans survived because we developed not just intelligence, but something equally important: the refusal to accept inevitable death. When a predator chased us, we ran until the predator collapsed from exhaustion. When natural disasters struck, we rebuilt. When disease swept through populations, survivors adapted and continued. We evolved the ability to override our own safety systems because on Earth, playing it safe meant extinction. She pulled up medical data from her cargo bay incident. My bones partially fractured during that lift. My muscle tissue sustained significant damage. My cardiovascular system operated at levels that should have caused immediate failure. I knew all this would happen. I did it anyway, because the alternative was watching someone die when I could prevent it. Maya's expression hardened. Administrator Velk saw human workers as weak because we're small. He missed that Earth doesn't produce its survivors based on size. It produces them based on stubborn, calculated refusal to quit. He mistook our restraint for inability. When I carried Drex to safety, I wasn't exceeding human capability. I was operating within it, at a level we reserve for absolute necessity. She turned back to Velk. You built corruption on the assumption that humans were too weak to challenge you. You were wrong about the weak part. But more fundamentally, you were wrong about what strength means. Maya projected the testimony records 17 species. 43 witnesses, all confirming systematic discrimination and resource theft. Real strength is Keswick's admitting he failed to see corruption in his department. It's Zal providing medical testimony despite professional risks. It's Drex speaking from a recovery bed to defend someone who saved his life. It's every crew member who stood forward knowing they might face retaliation. Administrator Valk chose corruption and blamed humans to cover his theft. We responded not with violence, not with sabotage, but with documentation, testimony, and trust in colonial justice. That's human strength, not the ability to lift impossible weights, the determination to stand up when systems fail, to speak truth when silence is easier. to believe that justice matters even when authority is corrupt. The amphitheater had gone absolutely silent. Maya could see various species processing her words through different cultural frameworks, but the core message was universal. She'd made this bigger than one tribunal. This was about the fundamental promise colonial authority represented, that justice applied equally, regardless of species, size, or perceived strength. "Your magistrate," Maya concluded. "I don't ask for vengeance against Velk. I ask for accountability. I ask that colonial authority acknowledge systematic discrimination exists and commit to addressing it. I ask that human workers and all workers facing similar discrimination be judged by competence rather than assumption. Because that's the foundation of everything we're supposed to represent out here among the stars." She stepped back. Magistrate Oral's ancient eyes studied her with expression that might have been respect. "The tribunal will deliberate," Oral announced. "But Technician Reeves, your testimony is acknowledged with commendation. You have demonstrated not merely competence under pressure, but moral courage rare among any species. The human proverb speaks of standing on the shoulders of giants. Today, I believe we have witnessed giants standing among us, regardless of their stature." The tribunal recessed. Valk's advocates looked shaken. The prosecution team Colonial Authorities Senior Counsel conveyed quiet satisfaction. Maya walked into the corridor beyond the chamber, where Jackson, Casix, Stahl, and dozens of other crew members from Theta 7 had gathered to watch the proceedings. Jackson grabbed her in a hug that probably aggravated her still healing injuries. "You just made history." "I just told the truth," Maya said. But she was smiling. The tribunal reconvened 3 hours later. Magistrate Oral's pronouncement was swift and absolute. Former Administrator Velk is found guilty on all charges. Sentence: 20 years colonial detention, permanent revocation of administrative credentials, and full financial restitution to victims. Additionally, this tribunal mandates colonial authority conduct comprehensive review of employment practices across all installations, with emphasis on identifying and eliminating species-based discrimination. Orel paused, then continued, "Let this case stand as precedent. Justice in colonial space depends not on physical strength, cultural dominance, or political influence. It depends on individuals willing to stand for truth despite personal cost." Technician Reeves and all who supported her testimony embody the principles upon which our civilization must operate. The amphitheater erupted in cross-species expressions of approval. Maya stood quietly amid the chaos, feeling the weight of 3 years of discrimination finally lifting. She'd carried 1,840 pounds across a cargo bay. But this was the lift that actually mattered. Justice wasn't impossible. It just required humans willing to do what was necessary, regardless of how much it hurt. 6 months after the tribunal, Maya stood in the observation deck of Station Theta 7, watching supply transports dock against the backdrop of a binary star system. The station had changed. New administrators, reformed protocols, and something less tangible but more important, a shift in how 17 species viewed human capability. Behind her, the door cycled open. Drex entered, his massive form now moving easily in the station's standard gravity. His recovered exosuit had been rebuilt, upgraded, and mounted in the station's main corridor with a plaque reading, "Saved by courage that exceeded all calculations." Testament to human determination. Drex had protested the memorial. Maya had overruled him. Sometimes symbols mattered. "Operations Coordinator Reeves," Drex said formally. The title still felt strange, but Maya had grown into it over 6 months of helping Kessex rebuild station management from the ground up. "Thought you'd want to know Colonial Authority approved our request. Theta 7 is now designated as primary training facility for cross-species emergency response." Maya turned from the viewport. They agreed to the full curriculum? Every module. Human emergency response protocols are now standard training across colonial space. Emphasis on what they're calling the Reeves Doctrine. Species capability should be assessed by demonstrated performance under real conditions, not laboratory projections. They named it after me? Maya groaned. That's embarrassing. That's recognition. Drex moved to stand beside her, looking out at the stars. Your testimony changed policy across 17 systems. Human workers are reporting increased duty assignments, advancement opportunities, and most importantly, respect. That happened because you refused to accept injustice. Maya corrected. That happened because dozens of people refused to accept injustice. I just got the spotlight. You earned the spotlight. Drex's species didn't do sentiment easily, but his voice carried warmth. My life debt to you extends beyond the cargo bay. You taught me something fundamental about strength. It's not about how much weight you carry. It's about whether you're willing to carry it at all. The observation deck door opened again. Jackson, Keswick, Thal, Prax, and a dozen other crew members filed in an intentional gathering, though Maya hadn't been told about it. Keswick stepped forward, his forearms carrying a small case. Maya, the entire crew wanted to present something. Colonial authority gave you official commendations. The tribunal praised your courage. But we wanted to offer something more personal. He opened the case. Inside lay a maintenance technician's patch, standard issue across colonial space. Except this one had been modified. The usual designation markers had been replaced with a simple phrase in 17 different languages, all saying the same thing. We stand together. Every crew member contributed, Keswick explained. Human, Granmally, Holveth, Turan, Vorak, all of us. Because what you demonstrated wasn't human exceptionalism. It was the principle that binds our entire civilization. When one of us faces impossible odds, the rest of us stand together to make the impossible possible. Maya accepted the patch, her throat tight. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep fighting for us, Jackson said. Say you'll keep making the system live up to its promises. Say you'll keep being exactly who you are, Estelle added. Someone who calculates the odds and then proceeds anyway because someone needs help. Maya looked at the faces surrounding her species from across known space. Unified by shared experience and mutual respect earned through the hardest possible circumstances. She thought about Earth billions of kilometers away, and the evolutionary pressure that had forged humans into beings, capable of breaking their own limits when necessity demanded it. But more than that, she thought about what humanity really represented. Not physical strength, not hysterical overrides or emergency response capabilities. Those were tools. What mattered was the choice, the decision to stand up, speak truth, and help others regardless of personal cost. That's what Earth had taught its children during 4 billion years of relentless pressure. Not how to be the strongest, how to refuse to quit, how to find solutions when options seemed exhausted, how to build communities where strength was shared rather than hoarded. I'll keep fighting, Maya said simply. That's what we do. 3 weeks later, the first cross-species emergency response training asterisk session began on Theta 7. 50 participants from 12 different species gathered in the upgraded cargo bay, the same bay where Maya had performed the impossible. Lift that started everything. Maya stood before them, officially designated as primary instructor. She'd argued against the appointment. Keswick had overruled her. They need to learn from someone who's actually done it, he'd said. Theory is valuable. Experience is irreplaceable. Welcome to Emergency Response Certification, Maya began. Over the next 6 weeks, you'll learn crisis assessment, rapid decision-making, and most importantly, how to operate beyond your presumed limitations when circumstances demand it. A young Halveth in the front row raised a claw. Instructor Reeves, how do we access emergency strength like humans do? You already can, Maya said. Every species in this room has demonstrated exceptional performance under crisis conditions. The Halveth mother, who held up a collapsed shelter beam for 3 minutes while hatchlings escaped. The Gramally engineer who manually sealed a breached airlock during decompression. The Thurin pilot who flew 16 hours straight through system failure to deliver critical medical supplies. She pulled up case studies from across colonial space. Emergency capability isn't exclusively human. What is relatively unique is how our physiology lets us consciously accept the damage. Most species have hard limits. We have governors that can be overridden. That's a tool, but it's not the only tool. Maya walked between the assembled students. Real emergency response is about rapid assessment. What needs to happen? What can I contribute? What's the acceptable cost? Then you execute using whatever capabilities you possess. Sometimes that's lifting impossible weights. Sometimes it's staying conscious through catastrophic pain. Sometimes it's just refusing to panic when everyone else has given up. Over the following weeks, Maya taught them everything she'd learned through 3 years of maintenance work and 1 moment of absolute necessity. Crisis assessment protocols, stress response management, species-specific capability profiles and how to optimize them, legal protections for emergency responders, and most importantly, the moral framework for making life-or-death decisions in seconds. The students were attentive, engaged, and frequently amazed by footage of cross-species heroism that had gone unrecognized because it didn't fit neat narratives about strength and capability. On graduation day, all 50 passed certification. They stood together in the cargo bay, species that had historically viewed each other through lenses of stereotype and assumption, now unified by shared understanding of what courage actually meant. Maya addressed them one final time. You're about to deploy across colonial space as certified emergency responders. You'll face situations where the calculus says failure is inevitable. Remember this. Inevitable is just what happens when nobody tries the impossible. Your job is to try anyway. Not recklessly calculated risk based on best available information. But when someone needs help and you can provide it, you act. That's the standard. That's what holds our civilization together. She paused, looking at their diverse forms and sensory organs and evolutionary backgrounds. Earth taught humans to endure. But out here, among the stars, we've learned something even more important. Endurance means more when it's shared. Strength means more when it lifts others. And courage means most when it inspires others to stand beside you. Maya smiled. Welcome to emergency response. You're going to save lives. Go do the impossible. As the graduates dispersed to assignments across 17 systems, Maya remained in the cargo bay. The same bay where she defied physics and administrative corruption. Where she'd chosen injury over abandoning a colleague. Where everything had changed. Jackson found her there an hour later. Inspector Thane just transmitted new assignment for us. Us? Got my coordinator certification last week. Figured someone needs to help you manage the expanded program. Jackson grinned. Besides, Kessex threatened to promote me if I didn't take it. You know how persuasive he can be with 4 arms. Maya laughed. Real, genuine laughter that released months of tension. What's the assignment? Colonial Authority wants us to develop emergency response programs for 3 more stations. They're calling it the Theta Initiative. We'd be traveling, training, building the curriculum into standard operations across the network. Maya looked around the cargo bay one last time. This station had tested her, pushed her beyond limits she'd thought absolute, and ultimately proven that humans and everyone else were capable of far more than anyone assumed. "Let's go change some systems," she said. They walked out together. Two humans who'd refused to accept discrimination, who'd stood against corruption, and who'd demonstrated that real strength came from the willingness to carry impossible weights together. Behind them, the cargo bay hummed with the sound of a station rebuilding itself on principles of justice, competence, and shared determination. Station Theta 7 had become something more than salvage operations and maintenance schedules. It had become proof that the galaxy's most important foundation wasn't technology, economics, or military power. It was individuals willing to lift each other up, regardless of the cost. In the centuries that followed, historians would look back on Maya Reeves's cargo bay lift as a pivotal moment in colonial history. The moment when humanity's unique capabilities became recognized not as dangerous anomalies, but as valuable contributions to collective survival. But Maya never thought of it that way. To her, it remained simple. Someone needed help. She could provide it. Everything else was just detail. That's what humans did. That's what they'd always done. From the moment evolution first challenged them on a hostile world to the present day among the stars, they calculated the odds, accepted the risks, and lifted anyway, because that's what strength really meant. The end in memory of every person who ever chose to help despite the cost. In celebration of human determination, stubborn, calculated, and absolutely unwilling to quit when someone needs saving. We endure. We rise. We carry each other forward.